people are starting to notice.
Joker has crossed the $1 billion mark at the box office, the first R-rated movie in history to do so. The Joaquin Phoenix drama is already the highest grossing R-rated film. Here with more insight is senior film writer Matt Donnelly. Matt, always good to have you in. Okay, so how significant is it that Joker has already made $1 billion?
I think it's incredibly significant for a couple of reasons. Number one, the modern comic book movie as we know it is a really four-quadrant family affair.
What do you mean by four-quadrant family when it comes to comic book heroes?
Four-quadrant mening that's the full spectrum of the American and global movie audience. So you've got 18 to 34-year-old young people,
Okay.
you've got families, you've got adults who might be more attracted to sort of, again, the more art house, grittier side of the film. You've got sort of the comic book lovers who want to see this sort of reimagining of Batman's biggest foe. And the fact that it's such a hard R and deals with incredibly violent themes is frankly impressive. And this film, as envisioned by Todd Phillips and performed by Joaquin Phoenix, is an incredibly dark, hard R-rated adventure that does not sort of attract a wide audience. So I think that you're looking at a couple of really interesting reasons as to why, but most of all, because Joker takes place in the world of a really gritty independent film. If you look at some of its predecessors who have been top grossing R-rated films, you're looking at stuff like Deadpool, the first and the sequel starring Ryan Reynolds, which is sort of like a dirty, funny, super action-centric romp.
Oh, you're living the dreams, DP.
Yeah.
Devil may care attitude.
And then behind that, you have the Matrix series, which is obviously a massive sci-fi fantasy franchise.
Dodge this.
So that this specific type of film would be so popular and demand so much consumer attention is really special.
How did it get here? I mean, you said that it's actually more of a niche audience than we would think of as being a big box office hit.
Sure. I think two things. Number one, this film had a full prestige rollout at all the fall festivals. So it opened in Venice and Telluride and Toronto. But once audiences actually got their hands on the film and saw sort of what Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix had created, I think it's demanded a lot of repeat viewing. And not just from obsessive comic book nerds, from cinephiles. You know, the film has drawn a lot of comparison to the work of Martin Scorsese in his early career.
Yeah. When you bring me out, can you introduce me as Joker?
Taxi driver vibe, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And figures like Robert De Niro being in there, I think it's attracted more of an intellectual and analytical audience as opposed to your run-of-the-mill comic book fan. And movies like this that do have, again, a sort of more prestigious rollout at festivals, you're probably looking at, on the conservative end, a $20 million spend on marketing. This one's probably closer to 40, but even so, it's a drop in the bucket compared to the grosses that we're seeing. And it's going to keep going. I anticipate Joker will be in theaters through the holidays.
So compare that to, say, a Marvel movie.
Hey, buddy, what do you think? Maximum occupancy has been reached.
Take the steps.
Yes. Stop.
Marvel movies cost anywhere upwards of $250 to $300 million, to say nothing of what it costs to market them. Again, you're flying 10 A-list stars all around the world, hair, makeup, private jets. It really does add up.
It does add up. I would know nothing about that.
No.
It's the first non-Marvel, non-Disney property to cross that mark this year. What does this mean for Warner Brothers?
I think it's a huge win, and I think it's one that the studio itself hadn't even expected. And I think the biggest takeaway for the studio is to really pivot around these, beloved and deeply mythological franchises. Joker has a very straightforward story in the comics, but this is such an interesting take that I think it offers Warner Brothers sort of a silver lining about how to possibly encroach on Marvel's dominance in the market by sort of zigging when Marvel zags. And I think you're already seeing it in other corners of Hollywood. If you look at something like Universal Pictures, they just recently released a trailer for The Invisible Man.
You're getting your freedom back, okay? Don't let him haunt you.
Hello?
Which is a Blumhouse, incredibly indie-style take on that H.G. Wells character, which sees Elizabeth Moss in a domestic violence story, escaping an ex-husband who now has the powers to become invisible.
Cecilia, although our relationship was far from perfect, I thought that you would talk to me rather than run away.
Are you okay?
And how has the paradigm shifted, I guess, with what is considered a comic book movie or what falls into that category since Joker has been released?
I think that we are pushing the IP to the very corners of the imagination and where it can go, which is actually quite encouraging to see. If you think about a lot of the conversations we've had recently as inspired by Martin Scorsese, who said that comic book films and tentpole franchises are not cinema, I think that there's a whole crop of filmmakers who have the full support and financial resources of studios that want to take these bigger risks.
Fantastic. Well, Matt, always good to hear your insight. Thanks for coming by. And for more box office news, head over to Variety.com.